Hi, my name is Jesus Garcia, and I'm the consignment director for trading card games at Heritage Auctions.
Hi, my name is Brian Nocenti. I'm the consignment director for Magic the Gathering card and video games.
Yeah, so we're here to talk about, Pokemon, Magic the Gathering market, a little bit of history of, how kind of TCG became a part of Heritage. Brian, you started pretty much, a few years ago?
Yes, I started about 2 years ago at Heritage as full-time. I was a contractor, I guess?
Consultant.
Yeah. For about a year before that.
Yeah, and I've been working here for 12 years. I started working in the comic book department, started doing some animation art as well, and then, Brian and I were kind of the first two employees for the category, which we've built from scratch. So yeah, no, it's been a fun ride. So a little bit of history of Pokemon. I know a lot of people don't know that Pokemon is actually the biggest media franchise in the world. Far surpasses Disney, Star Wars, Hello Kitty, all that stuff. It started in 1996 as video games, which Brian will probably get into a little bit more. And then they released the card games right soon after, and then it made its way here to the United States in 1999. I was one of those kids that came, from school just to watch Pokemon. I was so excited about it. So, it does bring back a lot of memories from them. So, a couple of questions that I always get asked, what's the most popular card? I think everybody can know it's first edition Charizard. The most valuable card is probably the Pikachu Illustrator, which we're really excited about having one. That's a CGC 10 right now, coming up for September 23rd, trading card game signature auction. Do you want to do a little bit on Magic?
Sure. Magic the Gathering came out in 1993. It's been full blast ever since then. The most valuable card is Black Lotus. There's quite a few different printings, but the Alpha Black Lotus, there's one graded in BGS 10 that's technically considered the most valuable card. Although recently Wizards of the Coast came out with a 1 of 1, the One Ring, which we have no idea what that's going to sell for when it hits the market, because there was a $2 million offer on that in Europe. But yeah, so that's a big unknown. So we don't. The One Ring could be the most valuable Magic card now, but I guess we'll see.
Yeah, so one of the discussions that Brian and I always have, is what's more popular, Pokemon or Magic the Gathering? I always say Pokemon, he says Magic. I say Pokemon because it has, a big franchise behind it. There's characters that people love. I remember Charizard was my favorite Pokemon when I was a kid. Am I right? You can voice your opinion.
I mean, Pokemon is bigger than Magic. The player base for Magic is very big. Yeah. The player base for Pokemon is fairly small. It's more collectors. That's the subtle differences between the two.
Yeah. So as far as the market of where Pokemon is, it's definitely leveled off since the big boom a few years ago. But it's slowly going back up. Cards are getting more popular. The franchise just retired Ash and Pikachu after 25 years. He finally won the Pokemon Masters World Championship. And, it's going to be very fun to see what happens in the next 5 years. But it's trending on a very good track right now. There's this steady growth in it, which is great. Magic has always been pretty hot, too.
So one thing I want to talk about is the market for Magic. Magic kind of exploded in 2018. The prices took a big jump. And that was primarily based on crypto. So Magic follows the crypto trends about a year after the halvings. But Pokemon doesn't seem to follow the same trends, which is pretty interesting since they're both entwined.
Yeah, no, well, in my opinion, Pokemon's very driven by what happens in the franchise, whether it's a new video game, a new movie, something exciting that's happening in the anime. So, it does see kind of like an up and down all the time. But right now, it's a good steady growth. We're hoping it does continue to go up. It's, one of the biggest things that's growing right now are the trophy cards. Cards that were won at tournaments in Japan, the Tropical Mega Battle in Hawaii, things like that. We've been seeing a lot more of these pop up lately for sale, and it's, they've done very, very well. So we're pretty excited about that too.
And that's one of the big differences between Pokemon and Magic. Magic didn't have those really trophy cards. They had one World Championship trophy that had a card in a plaque along with a big trophy. But outside of that, there hasn't been any trophy cards like Pokemon has.
Yeah, so another cool fact is we actually have the public world record for Pokemon and Magic. The PSA 9 Pikachu Illustrator that we sold last year sold for 840,000, and for Magic it was the
Is that artist proof Black Lotus?
yeah, and that sold for 615.
615 or 620?
615, yeah. So, yeah, and then we have one card coming up in September that we feel should definitely break both of those cards. It's the CGC 10 Pikachu Illustrator that will be featured in the auction. So,
Yeah, it's a big card.
yeah, exactly. Do you have anything else?
Uh,
Questions?
questions?
Yeah, so Pokemon comes out in multiple series a year, right?
Yeah.
Okay, if you could talk about that or how that all sort of evolves and why. And then secondly, if you look at cards like that might be not valuable now, but in the future, is there a way to look at that? Is it based on the artist of the card or the artwork or any
Right.
insight to that would be helpful?
So usually it's based on the popularity of the character. It does happen for Magic. It happens more so because the cards are actually played, where a card doesn't have value now, but it'll have value later. For Pokemon, it's not necessarily the same, as people don't play Pokemon. It's more about collecting than playing. So the cards that are more valuable now for Pokemon will probably stay more valuable rather than gaining traction later down the road.
Right. So, cards that feature like Charizard, he's the most sought after character. I know Greninja has made a really big push as well. Pikachu's always a fan favorite.
Umbreon?
The Umbreon cards from these recent sets have been really booming. Just those cards are selling for a lot of money right now.
Rayquaza?
And characters like Ash, Misty, and some of the other characters from the anime, the alternate arts, those are really popular right now too. I just think it's one of those things where the more connection there is with the character, the more value it will hold over time. Yeah. Any other
Yes,
questions?
it's definitely the alt arts and the
Yeah.
what's the rainbow hollows.
Yeah. Sure.
Any other questions? Any other
Any other questions?
things you guys want us to touch on?
Are you guys collectors yourself?
Do you want to go first?
Yeah, you go first.
So I've been a collector since ~95. When it comes to Magic, I've dabbled in many other collectibles as well, but Magic's been my main focus for the better part of 28 years.
Yeah, so I'm not a big collector as Brian is, but I do collect Pokemon cards and Yu-Gi-Oh cards. Right now, I'm actually trying to collect the Elemental Heroes for the Yu-Gi-Oh series because that's the one that I watched as a teenager that I really, really liked. So, I'm collecting what I like. So, yeah.
What's the international market like for trading card games?
Right now, China is the biggest international market. There's a lot of stuff in Europe too that moves. That's more of private sales here and there, so it's kind of like not well known. But Europe is really big. China's really big right now, especially in the last 6 months.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then there's a lot of Pokemon influence too in countries like Australia and New Zealand as well.
Yeah, it's worldwide for sure. I mean, our Magic has collectors all over the world. Magic's printed in 8 or 9 different languages now. So yeah, it's pretty massive.
Is there different values then for different languages?
Yeah, so it varies by set because there's some sets that weren't printed in certain languages. So U.S. is kind of the base standard. The European languages, German sometimes can be more popular depending on what set it is. And then there's the first 4 sets were only printed in English. And actually up until the 6th set was only printed until English. And then they did Italian and English. The Italian versions were printed much more so than the English. So the English version is worth more. And then afterwards, a couple sets later, they printed it in, I think, 4 or 5 different languages, if I'm not mistaken, most of those being European languages. And then later down the road, they went to Japan, China. China has 2 different, so they have simplified Chinese and traditional, and then they have them in Korean, they have them in Russian now. Russian's fairly new. But some of the Russian foil cards are worth substantially more than any other printing because there's just a small print run of those. But yes, it varies drastically based on the set.
Yeah, and then Pokemon's a little bit less, complicated, I guess.
Yeah.
The Japanese stuff does have value. Whenever it first came out, it was in Japan, like 1996. It wasn't released in other languages until 1999. So the early Japanese stuff, the no rarity stuff, is the one that's worth a lot more than the English stuff. That's the one where it was the first few prints where they really weren't thinking about making cards rare or common or uncommon. So they don't have the star or the circle or diamond on the bottom right corner. So after a few weeks or a month, they decided, oh wait, we should make some of these cards rare, uncommon, all that stuff. So they added the rarity symbol on the bottom right corner. So the early versions of those cards that don't have it, those go for more than the English versions. But after that, the English first edition base set goes for more than the Japanese base sets with the rarity symbols. And subsequently everything else, the Chinese, the Portuguese, Spanish, all that stuff, does tend to sell a lot lower than the English stuff. Yes.
With what we were just describing, how did, other than the old stuff, which you have
Mhm.
to get, do you get some of these things in packs, or how do you, how do you acquire some of these cards? Just
Yeah.
besides a personal transaction, right?
Right.
Just buy packs.
So for Magic, you definitely don't want to open old sealed product. It's worth way more closed than it is open. The odds of you getting a card that will pay for the product that you're opening is slim to none. So I would not suggest opening sealed product. That's more of like a coveted item that you want to sit on a shelf in a box, just kind of stare at it. Yeah, it's a trophy piece. If you want specific cards, I would say just buy those. But if you're looking for newer stuff, you can open boxes or you can just buy the cards outright. I've found over the years that it's better to buy the cards outright than try to find them yourselves in packs.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same thing with Pokemon. One of the biggest thing with the vintage packs, you can actually weigh them. So the heavier they are, that means that there's a guaranteed holographic card inside. So if you weigh your card and it has that, most people will crack it open and they take the chance of pulling one of the more popular cards like Charizard, Snorlax, things like that. But if it's light, they usually keep it sealed. So that kind of helps out. But with the more modern Pokemon cards, they actually add cards that have different weights. So there's no way to be able to tell if it's a holographic card inside or not. So people just crack them open and find out. Yeah.
You're talking about the reverse hollows?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think the Lord of the Rings Elden Rings are going to be worth as much as the Black Lotus someday?
Are you talking the serialized cards, or the serialized cards have definitely made a big impact on Magic. That product is going to be worth more, in my opinion, than any other product before that, especially take for example the Throne of Eldraine collector's boxes. Those are not going to be as valuable as anything that has a serialized card in it, or potentially a serialized card in it. We've seen the Lord of the Rings collector's boxes, they were $450-ish before that card was announced, and then they dropped, I think, $325 at the lowest point, and now they're back up to $400. The second wave is coming from Wizards, so I guess we'll just have to wait and see. I still think they're going to be around $350 at the lowest. I don't think they're going to drop much further than that because we have the Soul Rings. There's 3 serialized versions of the Soul Rings, and one of them is $7,000 or so, and then it doesn't drop too far from there. All the serialized Soul Rings, I believe, are 800 plus at this point.
Any other questions? What's your favorite Pokemon?
It's like, I know which one it is, but I forgot the name. It's the metal, it's Reggie something. It's the
Reggie Steel? Reggie Steel. Okay, cool. Well, my favorite one is Entei. And my favorite card of all time is the first edition New Revelation Entei card. Yeah. Do you have one, Brian? What's your favorite Pokemon?
Well, I have a favorite Magic card.
What's your favorite Magic card?
So my favorite Magic card is Vesuvian Doppelganger.
Okay.
Yeah,
Is there a reason why, or do you just like the art, or?
The art is just beautiful, in my opinion. It's if you don't know what the card is, it's like if you cut it in half, it's literally the same on both sides.
Oh.
It's a blue card. It's very powerful, or
Okay.
what was very powerful back in the day.
Do you play a lot of Magic?
I used to.
Oh.
That stopped when I had kids. And
You don't play with your kids?
No. No. Maybe when they get a little older.
Maybe when they get older. All right. Yeah. Yes.
Do you guys think that since modern Pokemon is such a higher print run than the older cards, do you think that they will eventually get to the same level of value, or is it more just around like specific chase cards like Blue Rayon, etc.?
I think specific chase cards, just because of the quantities that they're printing. I think last year they printed, I remember correctly, it was like 13 billion cards, which is a lot. So I think the chase cards will be fine down the road. I think they're going for a little too high right now, but there's a craze right now, so they'll probably drop down a little bit, but they'll still hold their value over time, definitely.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to see that market. We'll definitely see the prices go up over time, but we won't see the kind of numbers that we see for first edition base set for those, not in the future, not for many, many, many years.
No, not first edition base set box breaks, but we are working to do a Magic break here soon at the Burbank Card Show. So we're going to start working on that as soon as we get back home from this. And we'll start posting about it and doing all that fun stuff. Yeah. We're good?
Thank you guys for
All
coming.
right, thanks so much.
Appreciate it.